I will fight to the end. Doesn't matter what the world brings against me. I will fight to the end.
Well, good afternoon, and welcome to Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase, our weekly call-in town hall and radio show. I'm Senator Amanda Chase, your weekly radio show host, and I'm really excited to be on the show today. We had reconvene yesterday, and I have so much to share with you about the 2017 reconvene yesterday. I have a lot of good news to follow up with you on. I can't wait to tell you. But, for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, the goal of this show has always been to educate and inform the constituents about issues that affect their daily lives. As a state senator, I welcome the opportunity to give you an inside look at your government and invite you to be a part of that process. So give us a call today at 804-454-1366, and I look forward to taking your call on the air today. So let's talk about, we've got a number of things we want to talk about today. First of all, this November, you're going to have the opportunity to vote for Virginia's next governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general on Tuesday, November the 7th. And calling in today, we have one of the three Republican candidates for governor, Ed Gillespie. And Ed, we are delighted to have you on Cut to the Chase today and appreciate the opportunity to allow our listeners to learn more about your experience and vision for Virginia.
Well, I'm so thrilled to be on with you, Amanda. Thank you for giving me the time, and I'm eager to share my thoughts because I know that the policies that I'm putting forward and my experience will help get Virginia moving again and growing again, and we've got to do that because, as you know, sadly, we have been stuck for 5 years, and as we talk here today, Virginia's in the bottom 10 states on a quarterly basis in economic growth, and we should be number one in the nation, and we can be with the right policies, but those are not the policies that we have under the McAuliffe-Northam administration for sure.
That's exactly right. I know one of the things that you and I both really share is the whole idea of this comprehensive tax reform. And I know I put in numerous bills, about 3 or 4 different bills to reform B-POL, the corporate income tax, and you have that same vision. So why don't you share from your perspective where you see the tax reform going? What do our taxpayers have to look forward to under your administration?
Well, I have put forward a plan to cut our individual income tax rates by 10% across the board. And as you know, those rates were established in 1972, 45 years ago. They've never come down since, and yet other states all around us have been making themselves more competitive, and that's one of the reasons that we're in the bottom 10 states in economic growth on a quarterly basis now. We've got to become more competitive. And, small business owners, Amanda, we pay our taxes in the individual income tax code, not the corporate income tax rate. LLCs and subchapter S corps and sole entrepreneurs pay individual taxes, not corporate income taxes, and we need to bring those individual taxes down to make it easier to open a new small business and expand an existing one. It would also make us more attractive for retirees to stay in Virginia rather than head south on us, and that would be helpful to our economy. And it would also provide much-needed relief to hardworking Virginians whose wages and incomes have been pretty stagnant for some time now, and yet prices have been going up for health care and college and housing, and they're feeling squeezed. And my plan would result in the average family of 4 in Virginia having nearly $1,300 more to spend of their hard-earned dollars as they see fit. And it would also result in the creation of over 53,000 good-paying private sector full-time jobs in Virginia. That's a 25% increase over what we're currently projecting.
One of my biggest frustrations in the General Assembly when I was presenting my bills, my tax bills, before the Finance Committee is they do not allow for growth in their calculation. So I know one of the questions that will come up in the General Assembly is, what is the offset for this?
Well, that's a great question. You're right. We don't take into account, behavior and changes. And one of the beauties of having over 53,000 full-time good-paying jobs in Virginia is that we'll have over 53,000 new taxpayers.
Exactly.
And that'll be helpful to us paying taxes. But what I've done is I've looked at the projections, the revenue projections, and over the next 5 years, we anticipate about $3.4 billion in new revenue. Even with anemic economic growth, you do get revenue gains coming to the Treasury in Richmond. And what I'm saying is we'll preserve $2 billion of that to increase funding for critical functions of government like public safety and education and transportation and healthcare. But let's take, 1.2 of about 40% of that. So for every $3 we increase spending over the next 5 years, let's take $2 and give it back to the taxpayers in the form of lower rates. And that will foster greater economic growth and job creation. And so in this instance, this is based on, projected revenue gains that should not all go into new spending, but should provide some relief, much needed relief to Virginians. And so that's one of the beauties of this plan is it's phased in over 3 years, done in a responsible manner. But when fully phased in, the impact will be significant in terms of our economic growth. And to your point, we'll have more people paying taxes, and that lightens the load on those who are already paying taxes.
That's exactly right. And, today you had a big announcement. Tell us about your big announcement, your 15-point plan. Tell us about the faith in state government today at the press conference at the Capitol.
Well, I appreciate your leadership in this area of transparency, which is part of my faith in our government for all Virginians plan. And, we have got to make our government more transparent, and we obviously have to be ethical. And I'm not saying folks aren't, people who serve and run, do so for good reasons, but we can always be better. And what I've put forward today is what I call the faith in our government plan. And faith is an acronym for fairness, accountability, integrity, transparency, and honesty. And it's a 15-point plan that covers a number of areas. I'll start with if I'm entrusted with the governorship of our Commonwealth, the first thing I will do upon taking office is sign Executive Order Number 1. And Executive Order Number 1 would prohibit anyone in my administration, any of my appointees, from accepting gifts of any kind and keeping gifts of any kind. And that includes me, my wife, my immediate family, and anyone that I appoint. And I think that's important just to make clear, don't worry, I'm not taking anything. I'm not going to be, a jerk about it. Sometimes you have, people come from a different country and they want to present something to the governor of Virginia, and I'll graciously accept it, but we'll put it in a warehouse and we'll record it. It's not going to go on my mantle in my personal home. And I think that's important. And we also, working with our General Assembly, some reforms that I think would be helpful in terms of campaign finance. No personal use of campaign funds. I think, we're one of 5 states that doesn't have a prohibition. I know we've been working on it for some time. I'll work with the Assembly to make sure we get that done. And I would also, put more stringent bans in terms of the fundraising periods that we raise money for our campaigns in the Commonwealth. Right now, as you know, there's what we call a blackout for fundraising during the general session when the Assembly is in session. I think that's a good thing. But I think we should also, when the House or the Senate are meeting for a veto session and voting on the floor of the House or Senate, or in special session and veto and voting on the floor of the House and Senate, we should extend that ban to that as well. And I want to make sure that we get more public comment from people all across the Commonwealth for all of our public bodies, and that includes boards of visitors of our public colleges and universities. And so it's a broad-based, and people can go to my website, edforvirginia.com, and they can find my ethics reform package there, and the things we'll do to make it easier for Virginians to hold those of us who, hopefully I get elected and you are elected, hold us accountable for the promises we've made. Are we keeping them? And to be able to see what we're doing and how we're making our decisions. And I think that would be good for all of us to be able to live stream, for example, quarterly cabinet meetings. In my cabinet, I would live stream those, and we would have them not just in Richmond, but around the Commonwealth, so people don't have to come to Richmond to see their government in action. So it's a good 15-point plan that I think people will like, and I think we'll make sure that we don't have, later on some problem that comes that shakes people's confidence in our state government. As we talked about today, leadership is not just responding to problems. Leadership is anticipating problems and getting out in front of them, and I think that's what this package does. Absolutely, and I think it goes in the right direction that the constituents want, and that is a culture of transparency. People have lost that trust in their government. If you look at the last 10 years,
if you were a politician, you were immediately held under suspicion instead of trusted. It used to be maybe 20 years ago, if you were a politician, you were probably trusted a little bit more until probably about 2009. I think whenever you had this, the Tea Party surgence, and there's been this whole return, people wanting the government back. They felt like their hand was off the wheel for so long. And what in the world, our government is in the ditch over here because there's been no accountability to the people. So I really love your ideas here. Do you have time to come back, or do you have to go?
I can. No, I'll stay with you.
Okay, great. Well, we'll be back after the break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Cut to the Chase with State Senator Amanda Chase, and I have Republican candidate for governor Ed Gillespie on the line, and we have been talking about Ed's 15-point plan to ensure fairness, accountability, integrity, transparency, and honesty in state government today. And we mentioned earlier about a press conference today with the Majority Leader, Kirk Cox, soon to be our next Speaker of the House. The Speaker was there today. And, it was, let me just tell you, as a grassroots activist, I am so encouraged by this plan. It's really been the heart when I go door to door, and I have been, seems like for 10 years now for different candidates. That's what people want. They want to be able to trust their government again. And so I really appreciate, Ed, I appreciate your leadership in putting forward this plan. What I would like to do now is maybe tell our listeners about your experience and how that experience has prepared you to be the 73rd governor of the Commonwealth.
Well, I appreciate that, Amanda. I feel that my experience in government and in the private sector and as a party leader have prepared me well to be an effective governor for us and to hit the ground running on day one. Some of your viewers may know I was counselor to the president for President George W. Bush for the last 18 months in his time in office. I was with him in the Oval Office every morning, unless we were traveling, talking about, watching him make executive decisions that affected the country in a very challenging time for us. What people probably don't know is that, I worked my way to that job, working my way through college at the Catholic University of America, where I took out student loans and washed dishes and bus tables, and I was a Senate parking lot attendant, parking the cars for the staff that worked for up on Capitol Hill, and that's what got me, started in my career. But my parents didn't go to college. Two of the hardest working and smartest people I've ever known, and I grew up working in their grocery store, our mom and pop grocery store, literally. And that, ethic of hard work that I learned there has served me well all my life. And I was chairman of the Republican National Committee, chairman of the Republican Party of Virginia. I've started 3 successful small businesses of my own. Kathy and I know what it's like to put your house down as the collateral on a loan that you need to be able to meet payroll and pay your rent for the first year you open your doors. So I know the risks entrepreneurs take and the challenges small businesses face, and I know how to meet those problems. And so I think my record of, hard work and being ethical and working at, I was a principal drafter of the Contract with America. If your listeners remember that from 1994 with Newt Gingrich and Dick Armey, that led to the first balanced budget in 25 years. So I think those things combined, as well as my experience as a husband and as a father, which are a factor, will help me be an effective governor for us. And I'm looking forward to running on those, not just on our policies and principles, but on my ability to get things done for us.
Tell me, what is your biggest motivation about running for governor? Because I remember, I think I met you probably a couple governors ago, and I remember I had a very positive impression of you. And just tell us, you've seen all these governors come and go and that type of thing. What is your motivation for jumping in?
I love our Commonwealth, and I'm worried about it. And I have been, as I just shared a little bit of my personal story, my father's an immigrant to this country. My grandfather was a janitor. He came here because he found work in America. I got to be counselor to the President of the United States of America, from immigrant janitor to West Wing of the White House in 2 generations' time. What a country. But I'm worried, Amanda, that, we're not having that kind of upward mobility and that opportunity for our fellow Virginians here today. And I think if you can make a difference for the Commonwealth and the country that we love, because we have always in Virginia been at the forefront of American history, and we can make a difference here, we can have an impact on the rest of the country as well. But for me, if I have an opportunity to make a difference for Virginia and help all Virginians, and I believe my policies do help make life better for all Virginians, and you have the ability to serve and to run, and you feel strongly about it, I think you've got a moral obligation to try. And I feel called to serve. I don't know if I'm hearing that call right or not. We'll know soon enough if it's God's will for me to serve. But I feel called to serve, and if I'm given the opportunity, I'll be an honest, ethical, hardworking, principled, faithful servant leader for my fellow Virginians, and a leader worthy of Virginia. And I just think we could use one of those right about now.
Absolutely. As we look over this yesterday and the reconvene at the number of vetoes that took place, and I know that our current governor was bragging about the number of vetoes, which was a little offensive to me after all the work that we put in the General Assembly for him just to flippantly, veto those bills. Are there any particular bills that you saw were vetoed that you would have not vetoed, that you would have signed into law?
Yeah, a number of them. And let me just take your first point, though, which is exactly right. I've never seen a governor so proud of what he did not get done for the people of Virginia.
Yeah.
This is a failure of leadership,
right,
to not be able to work together to get things done and to have to constantly veto things. But there were a number of them. One that has always struck me is, because it just seems almost spiteful to me, is the bill that would allow for our homeschool students to be able to participate in public sports programs.
Right.
These families, parents, paying property taxes and contributing to the funding of the schools, not imposing a burden on the schools in terms of the classrooms and the teaching requirements. And yet we're not going to allow them to participate in our public sports programs. My children went to Catholic school. I was a coach, coached junior CYO basketball, and we had homeschool children play on the school's team, and it was good for those children. But you know what, Amanda? It was good for my children too, and that just seems spiteful to me. So that's one that comes immediately to mind.
I've enjoyed getting to really know you a lot better over the past year, and one of the things that's very important to me about your character is your faith. Do you want to talk briefly about your faith to our listeners?
Well, my faith is, I'm sure and I know for you it is, and to many of your listeners, it's central to my life. I was honored to work for President George W. Bush, and I remember he would say to me and would say sometimes, I could not do this job if it weren't for my faith. And they would always be careful to say, now, that's not to say that someone who doesn't share my faith couldn't do the job. I'm just saying, for me, I couldn't do this job if it weren't for my faith. And I remember thinking, when I would hear him say that, I couldn't be a parent or a husband or a candidate, if it weren't for my faith. It sustains me in everything I do. And, that's not to say that others who don't share that faith, I'm accepting of all folks. But to me, I was, raised Irish Catholic in a traditional Irish Catholic family and home, a very close-knit family and home. And I continue to be active in my faith. And one of the great things about running for governor, though, I will say is, you get to go and worship at so many different churches all across the Commonwealth and different denominations and faiths and traditions. And Kathy and I really enjoy that. It is truly one of my favorite things about running for office.
Ed Gillespie, thanks so much for being on our show today.
Thanks for having me on, Amanda. Great to be with you as always.
Great being with you too. Thanks again. Ed Gillespie.
I will fight till the end. Doesn't matter what the world means against
Welcome
me.
back to Cut to the Chase with State Senator Amanda Chase. And we are now going to begin talking about reconvene yesterday 2017 reconvened session, and there were a number of bills, as we mentioned, that were vetoed by the governor, and this governor expressed his let's just say there were no bills that were overridden yesterday, unfortunately. Yet you would think we would be out at a reasonable time, but we were not. I remember driving back across the river at 8:30 last night, and anyway, one particular bill, which I want your input on, and I'm going to give you the number again, so write it down, 804-454-1366, was Senate Bill 1102, and this is a Virginia Freedom of Information Act bill, and it was introduced by Senator Scott Servell, who's been on the show several times with me discussing coal ash, and basically this bill requires that records of completed unintended death investigations be released to the parent or spouse of the decedent, or if there is no living parent or spouse, to the most immediate family member. It also defines unattended death and immediate family member. Now, this was a real challenge, and I'll tell you why. And I will just go ahead and tell you that the senators rejected a move by Governor McAuliffe to gut the bill that would basically allow parents and immediate family of those who commit suicide to have access to police records on this case. This was also reported in the Richmond Times-Dispatch by Patrick Wilson. It basically is amending the State Freedom of Information Act. There were families that wanted to get police records in death cases in which the police have determined that there's no criminal charges that are going to be filed. Nothing currently stops police from withholding those records, but their release is not mandatory, and most police agencies opt to keep them secret. The bill stemmed from several cases in which families with questions about the suicide of a loved one asked to see the police reports, but they were denied. What the governor's amendments attempted to do were initially to gut it. Rather than get the police file, the families would receive only a summary of what happened, something that often already happens. And so we had a vote on this on the floor. And initially, and I actually spoke on behalf of this bill and on the floor of the Senate, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. I was very conflicted on this vote because I do believe in being transparent, as we were talking about with Ed Gillespie earlier today, our Republican candidate for governor here, one of our three candidates. And we're talking about how important transparency is. But the question is that always a good idea? What about in cases of private personal information? Like, we don't want our police officers' private personal residential addresses as public information, right? That's probably not going to be a good idea. So what happened was, on a vote of whether to accept these governor's amendments, there was a tie vote, 20-20, and Lieutenant Governor Ralph Northam, who presides over the Senate, broke the vote and sided with, believe it or not, they went against the governor's amendment and basically rejected the amendment, meaning the amendment failed on a 21-20 vote. And then later we took it up for a vote, and the bill came back with an even larger margin of 24-16. Now, I know I probably confused a few people because I actually spoke against the bill, and I expressed quite honestly that I felt very conflicted about the bill, and I was really searching in my heart what the right thing to do on this bill. And I will tell you, not every vote that we make as easy as you would like them to be. But I had talked to Kevin Carroll, who is on the phone right now, and he is the president of the Virginia Fraternal Order of Police. Did I get it right, Kevin?
You did.
Okay, fantastic. And Kevin had come to me after the bill had passed out of the Senate, and he was like, Amanda, this bill has problems. And so we talked through this, and I called him on the way in this morning, and I was like, when it came down to transparency, I had to vote with transparency, and we're still talking about it this morning. So I said, why don't you come on the show and let's talk about it? So the proposed amendments that the governor put in, they were supported by the Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police, the Virginia Fraternal Order of Police, the Virginia Association of Commonwealth's Attorneys, the Virginia Association of Campus Law Enforcement Administrators. Kevin, tell me a little bit about your concerns. We've got 30 seconds to go to the break. You know, we're going to come back and talk to Kevin in just a second here. Kevin is the president of the Fraternal Order of Police of Virginia, and he's got tremendous knowledge in this area. We're going to come back to him so we don't have to interrupt him. Stay tuned. We're going to be right back. We'll have Kevin Carroll talking about these governor's amendments. Stay tuned. I love that last segment. State Senator Amanda Chase here with you all today on Cut to the Chase Radio, and I have Kevin Carroll, who is president of the Fraternal Order of Police, on the phone, and we are talking about Senate Bill 1102 that came up on the floor of the Senate yesterday. And Kevin, I would love for the folks to hear the Fraternal Order of Police's position on this very sensitive information.
Sure. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. These type of cases, and we'll talk about unattended death investigations, so it's limited as to the scope of what type of cases information will be released on. But that being said, a lot of the information that we're now going to have to release to these family members is graphic. And 9 out of 10 times, I will say, maybe the numbers are a little different than that. We'll talk about suicides. If someone commits suicide, they're probably found by a family member. But we'll take an instance where it may happen somewhere else in a hotel room or at a college dorm, somewhere else where the family member actually doesn't find them. Well, there are going to be witnesses that are going to be involved. The person who finds them, maybe doors of other hotel rooms that we knock on, or other witnesses that are interviewed. Well, now that information of not only what they say but who they are is we're going to have to release to a family member. And there's no limitation on what the family member can do with it, not to mention the graphic nature of the photos that are taken of the incident when it occurs. The family members may not have seen their loved one in that state. Now they're going to have the opportunity to see it. So there's a psychological problem that can occur for the family being traumatized again with the information that they're now afforded. The truth of the matter is most police departments in the Commonwealth, and I know you talked about it and said there were some instances where they didn't do it, but most already review the cases with the family members now to assuage their concerns as to what may have happened with their loved one. The instances are far less where that doesn't happen. Most professional police departments that are accredited, and sheriff's departments and the state police for that matter, I've done it in my own career. We'll sit down with the family members and go over this information with them without necessarily having to release all this information. So now you open people up for retaliation for cooperating with the police. There's a possibility that some people may say, hey, if my name's going to end up in a report, I'm not going to tell you anything. And there's other information that's gathered as part of a report when these cases are investigated that may not be directly related to the actual case, but it may end up being information that would be valuable later on in some other investigation. And so now all of that information is going to end up out there, and just because it's given to one person when it's released from the police department doesn't mean it's going to stay there. And you may end up with having that person who was given it get hacked, and their computer gets hacked, and now you have pictures on the internet and everywhere else of a private nature, of a tragic nature, being released, which then can further traumatize the family. I could sit here and talk to you for a long time about why this is a bad idea, and it's not about transparency. It's also about confidentiality for the family themselves, and for also witnesses from the public who cooperate with the police, figuring that they're going to be kept in confidence, and that's not going to be the same anymore.
Kevin, thank you so much for, even though I don't always agree with people, I like for them to come on the show so you all can hear the other side of the story. As the chairman of the co-chairman of the Transparency Caucus, I felt very conflicted over the bill because I definitely see your point, and I know a lot of our listeners do. But then I also look at families who they just want it, and should they be given the option to have that? And so that's why I was very conflicted, but I ended up voting to reject the governor's amendment that would have gutted the bill. But I really wanted to have you on the show, and I really appreciate you coming on at the last minute, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay, no problem.
Next up, we have another Republican candidate for governor, Frank Wagner. Frank, are you on the phone?
Yeah, how you doing, Amanda?
Frank, it's great to have you on the phone. Frank is one of my seatmates. We get to work together in the Senate, and, we have a great time in the Senate. Everybody gets along, right, Frank?
Absolutely.
We really do.
At least about 90% of the time. 95.
When you left to go home last night, how did you feel?
I felt like we had a long day, but a great day. Unfortunately, the governor has vetoed way too many good bills, and we don't have the votes, as you know, to override his veto. So we're just going to have to get more Republicans in the General Assembly next time we have a Democrat governor, which I hope it will be a long time from now.
You and me both. I would like to have seen more of those bills that we worked so hard on actually pass. We had a number of bills that passed actually both the House and the Senate, but were vetoed by the governor. So did you have any important bills of yours that made it out?
Yeah, I think all my bills that I put in this year were ultimately signed. None of them were amended. So, we made some good progress in the area of utilities. Some progress in a measured, careful form on deploying renewable energy. And I think we're moving along fairly well.
Tell our listeners how long you've been in the General Assembly. You're not a newcomer like me. You're more experienced.
This is my 25th year. I served in the House of Delegates for 8 years, and then was elected in a special election to the Senate of Virginia in 2000, and I've been since 2001. I've been in the Senate of Virginia, so I've been there a while. I've experienced. I know what's going on in Richmond, and you were learning very rapidly, Amanda. You're doing a great job there, but I think once you get up there, you just realize how big and complex government can be, and it takes a while to come up the learning curve. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, and I really appreciate you coming alongside me as a freshman legislator and helping me learn the ropes. Frank's always been very good to me, and signing on to my bills. And I figured out my first year that the best way to get a yes vote was to get everybody to co-patron your bill.
Well, that certainly helps, but you are a very quick study, Amanda. You're doing a great job, and you've become a great asset in the Senate of Virginia, and we love having you there.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, let's talk about your run for governor.
Absolutely. Go on, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, give folks a little bit, tell them a little bit more about your professional life, because you were in engineering, correct?
Well, I graduated from the Naval Academy with a degree in engineering. I was a hard hat diver in the Navy for a number of years, and then became an engineering duty officer. So I worked in Navy yards. When I left the Navy, I worked in a shipyard for a short period of time and said, this is too much fun. I need to start my own business. So I started from scratch, just myself, and built it up to well over 100 people at its peak, and sold the business, and went on, had a non-compete on me because the person who bought me didn't want me to get back into business for a period of years. That's when I ran for office. That was 1991. And when the non-compete came off, I found another shipyard to buy and bought that shipyard. It had about 25 people, and I grew that to 140 people. And I think having what I would call real business experience, not a lobbyist like Ed Gillespie or a lawyer like Corey Stewart, but having real business experience with people that are welders, ship fitters, pipe fitters. I've worn a hard hat all my life in the last 2 years in the Navy, and certainly my entire professional career, working around some of the finest people that I have. And I would contrast that business experience against others. A lot of people think, particularly given that we need to diversify and grow this economy, that's an important element of it. To really know and experience what business people go through every day in terms of government regulation is very important. I'm also the only military veteran running on the Republican side, and we have over 800,000 veterans. And I know what it's like to make that transition from military life to civilian life, and it's not as easy as one might think. And there's certainly, but we want to keep that military talent, if you will, in the Commonwealth of Virginia. These are highly trained, highly skilled individuals that, with some retraining, will contribute greatly to the economy of Virginia. And so I think that's an important aspect, certainly the military aspect. I think to come up there and you understand just how big government is and certainly understanding what's going on is going to be a key element to be able to hit the ground running. As you know, our outgoing governor will drop in the budget. It'll be his budget. He will have left office. We will have already convened and be working on the budget, and basically it's dead on arrival because he's outgoing. He's not even there to defend it. And then the incoming governor gets inaugurated and is moving into his office. So if you don't have that experience and the knowledge of the budget drives your agenda, so you can speak agenda, but without the budget to back it up, you're not going to be able to implement the programs that you're talking about. So I think that element's key and important and with consideration. So I think all that next, I bring certainly the experience, the military service, and also what I would call real business experience, not being a lobbyist or a lawyer, but being a person in there. And I think more importantly, the issues are important to us that we want to talk about. The things that are important to us in terms of education. Now, there are plenty of jobs available, as you know, Amanda. Right now, they're available. There's just no one there trained to fill them. And so the important aspect, I think, right now is we need to look at our education system and ask ourselves, what are we doing wrong and what do we need to do? And I will tell you something, that there are plenty of jobs available, but they require career technical skills, not necessarily a college diploma.
Right.
And as we went down the road of SOLs and SOQs, we basically did it at the expense of a career technical education. And we're making strides. We're making headways in that direction. I've got the Career Technical Education Legislator of the Year award so many times, I can totally give it to somebody else. But we're making great progress and starting to recognize the importance of it. But we need to totally rethink it from 6th grade on and at least make parents and students aware of the opportunities in the career technical field. And the big secrets are somebody with a good career technical background is going to make more money than a college graduate, not end up with the student loans that a college graduate has, and ready to go to work and able to contribute to the economy, and their jobs are going back. And everywhere I go around the state of Amanda, I talk to folks, and their number one problem is they cannot find qualified people to fill the work they have. So we've got to address that situation and move forward with that. And I think we need to make in key areas of the state some investments in transportation. We should stop talking about Route 58 and start talking about I-58 if we want to reinvigorate South Side of the manufacturing development corridor. That's very, very important. We're going to have a huge natural gas pipeline, a new power station, 2 competing railroads. All the chemistry is there. Depending on where you locate, 20 miles to 120 miles from the board. Every key element for a manufacturing basis right here in Virginia. If we don't make this investment, I'll tell you right now, North Carolina is already making an investment in a parallel interstate highway system to come up through Virginia into the port of Virginia. And all the economic development activity won't be in Virginia, it will be in North Carolina unless we make these kind of investments. So certainly strategic transportation investments are very, very important to get this economy moving. And what and you've been up there long enough, Amanda, that we talk about, we got to put more money in because this area is depressed and we got to do some things here and we got to put more money in here and this area is depressed. But what we're doing is we're treating symptoms. We're not treating the disease. I'm going after treating the disease. I want all areas of the Commonwealth, South Side, Southwest Virginia. I want their economies contributing as much as the economies in Northern Virginia, Hampton Roads, and Richmond are contributing. I want all areas of the state to be prosperous, and I think based on my knowledge of the state and having served for 25 years, I know what it takes. More importantly, I know how to get it done. Do
you have a website that you can send people to? I know we've only got like 2 more minutes left on the show here.
Oh, yeah, certainly. Yeah. Just go to frankwagner.us, and that'll put you on the website. Like us, friend us on Facebook. We're on Facebook. We are very interactive. We've done a number of little videos that talk about specific subjects. My concerns in the field of autism. We have some populations that need some help, and I think it's important as we as Republicans recognize that and address those situations that we have in those areas. And so I just appreciate the time.
Thank you, Senator Wagner. And
I tried to cut to the chase.
You did a great job cutting to the chase today. Senator Wagner,
Okay.
thanks so much. Senator Wagner, Republican candidate for for regular governor, not lieutenant governor. So great to have him on the show. Are we still on? We're still on. Okay, great. So my great news is this. You remember the coal ash bill, 1398? We got our governor's amendments. It passed. It passed, you guys. I'm so excited. So a special thanks to Dominion, the House of Representatives, especially a special shout out to the Majority Leader, Kirk Cox, for helping make that happen. I'm so excited, and we're going to talk about that more next week, 4 to 5 next week, Thursday. Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase. Thanks for being here today.